Hello, guys, and welcome to this week's episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola, and what we are going to talk about is quite interesting today. We are going to talk about Lagos State and Lagos State bond and its fresh issuance and what it means for you, what it actually means, the announcement that you saw, what it means. And then we're talking about the US government shutdown and what has happened so far and how it has impacted people's pockets so far. And then we're going across to Africa, what's happening in East Africa and then also in Congo, about the markets, right? It's all about the economy, investing, and you and how it affects your pocket. So, yes, my name is Ola. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification button so that you don't miss out on these money episodes that happen every Saturday, 9 a.m. West African time. Yeah. So we'll start with, let's see. Okay, let's start with Nigeria. Let's start with Nigeria. Of course, if you are listening in, please just say hi. So, what's happening in Nigeria? Oh, it has disappeared. So, in Nigeria, the Lagos State issued a bond. They will issue a bond this week. So, for you as an individual, I'm sure you saw the notice. Lagos State is issuing bonds, 10 million minimum amount. This is how it will be funded. So I just want to do like a little walkthrough of everything that you saw on that announcement and what they actually mean. The first thing is that they talked about a 1 trillion program. What do they mean by a program? A program is basically what happens is that when you want to borrow, like on that scale, you go to the SEC and then you tell them that, okay, this is the total amount I want to borrow. There's a lot of reports, a lot of submissions, a lot of returns, a lot of approvals. But so because there's a long process, you don't go to say that I want to borrow 1 million and it's only 1 million I'm going to request for at that time. Most times what people do is that they actually get approvals for a program and then they can tap intermittently. What that means is that that blanket approvals covers their borrowing within those terms until they fill that amount up, right? So they have a one trillion program, right? And so this particular borrowing was 200 billion out of that program. So just think of it as this is the cap that the SEC has approved for them to borrow. Mhm. And so they are taking 200 billion out of that. They are tapping, meaning that they are borrowing 200 billion out of that. I see somebody saying hi, right? And yes, and they're tapping 200 billion out of that. Now, what does that mean in terms of for you as an individual? They now come down to say, okay, this is our rating, number one. Number two, this is how we're going to fund. And that's what I want to talk about because they just use codes in those announcements. They said, how will it be funded? How would you pay back? How would they get where would they get the money to pay you back? And the first thing they wrote there was ISPO. ISPO means irrevocable standing payment order. Yes, irrevocable standing payment order. Now, what does that mean? So that you understand how government ties with business, ties with economy, ties with your money. So, you know that there's FAC, right? We all see that FAC announcement. When that FAC announcement comes, right, they say the government approves 1 billion, 1 trillion to be shared for the month of December. Let's use December 2025. What happens is that about 48% of it goes to about 50-ish, 50-ish. I'm not sure the exact who gets what, but 50-50. 50 goes to federal and then the balance goes to the states and the local governments, right? Now, let's say it's 1 trillion and they assume that 500 billion is going to go to the state. Each state will now have their own allocation of that amount. And that amount will the Federal Ministry of Finance into the state's accounts. What they are saying is that from the money that they get, there will be an irrevocable standing payment order. Before they can pay for any other obligation, they will deduct the amount they need to pay for this bond. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is that they created a debt servicing platform, debt servicing tool in Lagos State, such that a portion of the IGR means internally generated returns, will be going into that account. And based on the last report that we got, there's a time when Lagos State was very, very blurred about their revenue. But last year they said that they had 2 trillion in revenue. They are saying that from that 2 trillion, there's 2 trillion, we are borrowing 200 billion, and we're paying over a period. The question is, do you think I cannot pay you? Right? So what are they trying to say? That based on who we are and who we be and the kind of liquidity that we roll with, you guys should just relax, drink water. Then in terms of the rates, it's between 16.15 and 16.25. Now, if you compare that to the FGNs, because in Nigeria, in Naira, the lowest rate should be the FGNs. FGNs of that maturity are around 15.5 ish. So it's about 75.75% ish premium over the federal government. Will you say it's enough? I don't know. I don't know. It's debatable. Rates are generally coming down. So it's not a bad rate. The tenure is 10 years. But now let's get into it as an individual. Why would I say it's a good investment? I would say it's a good investment because it's Lagos State. Most likely Lagos State will not default. However, it's a 10-year bond. What that means is that for you as an individual, you need to understand that it's long term. Long term means long term. Now, the second thing on the back of that 10-year is the fact that it's not liquid. So if it was an FGN bond, for example, even though it's 10 years, you can decide that okay, after 3 years, I want to sell, and that same day you will find a buyer. But with Lagos State, you may not find a buyer because there's no ready secondary market for state government bonds in Nigeria currently. So that's the only caveat. But in terms of the return is okay. If you get 16% over a 10-year period, it's not a bad one, especially when we can see the trend that yields are coming down. We also see that Lagos State did not come when rates were like 20% because they would have paid well. But now they are coming in because markets are getting better and softening, and the CBN is dropping rates. Can you see how all these things we've been talking about in bits and pieces are coming into decision making across board? And so for you, if you haven't already, understand that yields are coming down. So even this 16 that you might say is not fantastic, in a couple of months it might be 12. Just giving you that heads up. So it has closed if you don't know already. But did you jump in? What are your thoughts? What are your reservations? Please let me see. I see some people are here already. Hi, Osaru Mese. Nice having you on the show again. Yes. Yes, there's so much happening. Oversubscribe. Oh, we talked about oversubscribed Eurobonds last week. So it's like pretty stale news now, the way the world moves. And then okay, hi, Business Online. Hi, Iola. I see you. And then hi, Miriam Adekunle. Let's move on to the next news now. Okay, yes, this is also quite interesting. Because a lot of things are changing in Nigeria. And I dare say that we need to be aware. Things are changing. And the interesting thing is that we might think that these things only matter in terms of government doing stuff. But one thing you need to understand is that whatever is happening in your financial life, right, in your pocket, it is driven by policy. It's driven by the policy and how you interpret it and you position yourself for or against that policy, intentionally or unintentionally. The policy is impacting you. So you need to be dodging what you should dodge, and you need to be embracing or drawing value from what you should draw value from. But policy is what's driving everything right now. And that is what is going to keep driving. So you need to keep an eye on policy if you want to be on top of the game. That's just it. Whether you are a private, you run your own business, or you are a 9 to 5, it's affecting you. That's why we have the sessions every Saturday. Now, what happened? Nigeria, so the Federal Executive Council approved a couple of things. The first thing is there's a national, I had to write it down, intellectual property policy and strategy document that has been approved. Basically, what that document is supposed to do is to create a framework for IP protection for service businesses, things that you can't exactly measure, trademarks, all those things, to ensure that they become tradable assets. Once you move your song from just something that people pay you to come and sing to something that everywhere it is mentioned, or it is used for something else beyond just even playing, you get paid for it. Once you can, um, is it turn that thing into a living asset, then you've just raised the economy. And that's what you're trying to do. Before now, there was trademarking. We all know about IP, but they've now created a clear framework that people can use to go to court. People can, you can align your business, your product, your services with it, right? So this is something that we need to look out for. The next thing that they actually ratified was something quite interesting about services, right? How we're going to be exporting talent. So talent is about services actually is about 50% of our GDP, but we only export about 10% of that. Whether that's the actual number or that's the number on record, we have to work with the data that we have. But we only export 10% of our services in Nigeria, despite it being 50% of our GDP. So what this thing is doing, what this the policy is really more saying is that we now have a framework for exporting talent, for valuing our talent, for positioning our talent to go global. That is what it is. Now, if you are in the service business, this is something you need to look out for. If you are a professional, if you are a creative, these are the things that empower you to rise. In other climes, you will hear things around how creatives have some kind of rebate from the government, blah, blah, blah. These are the makings of those things. What they are doing is making their own local talent competitive globally. So there are some things that are not working. I think they're not working because there's no framework and they're signing the frameworks. So start looking at them. If you have siblings, relatives, beyond just, oh, I'm a creative, I'm excited, I'm passionate. No, go and look at the business and the legals of your whatever to make it an asset that runs beside you. Like, meaning you can be watching that asset making money while you're sleeping. Yeah. And then the final thing was that they ratified the reforms for the digital, what they call it, digital assets in the AFCFTA framework, right? So there's a lot of signing going. What am I trying to say here? Now, let's be aware. If you are in the services industry, if you are in the creative industry, those things that we can't, it's not a product that, okay, come and buy, it's 5 naira, take it from me at 7. If you don't have any of that, but you are being paid to do something creative, mental, blah, 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 then you need to look at all these things. You need to get your lawyer friends to talk to them about it. What does it mean for you? How do you position? How do you invest? Because it means those things become more bankable. This is how we think about these things, and this is how we find opportunities. So if you don't already, consider it that way. We need to run. We need to run. We need to run. So African news, Rwanda and Tanzania begin talks to link national payment systems for instant cross-border transfers. Now, the fun fact here is not so fun. Was that it used to cost about 49% of the value to transfer money between these two countries. Can you imagine? And they are both in East Africa. And then the global average is like 6%. So make it make sense. There are a lot of things that don't really make sense in Africa, especially like travel. Yeah. Travel, payments, trade, everything around travel, payments, trade. There has been a lot of doesn't make sense across Africa. So these are the policies that are coming into place to fix it. Now, the fun fact is what they are trying to do is even going beyond normal. They're not even saying plug into Swift and blah, blah, blah. They are saying that the way you can transfer locally in Rwanda, you would transfer to a Tanzanian bank account one time and they will get it immediately, instant pay. So they're even going ahead of the curve. Hey, we have been slow. Let's just catch up and catch up hard. Right. So they're going to merge Tanzania's instant pay system to Rwanda's national payment switch. Once that is done and the banks plug in, it's like we're in the same country. That is fantastic. That is really, really fantastic. So this is something that we need to look out for. Then in second news out of Africa, I mean, this thing matters for trade. It matters a whole lot for trade. It matters a whole lot for exports. It matters a whole lot when you want to do transactions in Nigeria with Rwanda. The fact that these things are just like seamless, you would see how people begin to take advantage of it in their dealings. So you can literally say that you are sending something to Congo, to Tanzania from Rwanda in the first flight and get paid same day, and transaction is closed. You can see how these things affect trade, or even by rail, right? So these are the things that we need to consider. Then Congo is planning a debt for nature swap. Basically, what they are saying is they want to convert their IOU to I will protect I will protect nature. And it's very creative. Some of these kind of structures have been done in the past, but basically what they are saying is that if I protect nature, if I agree that I'll do some certain things to protect nature, then reduce my debts. They're trying to find creative ways to reduce their debt burden that does not require them bringing out liquid cash to actually pay. So there's the Congo Basin, which is actually a very significant section, or what was the word, region in the global geography and all, and the balance of the ecosystem. And they're saying that we have this Congo basin. And you guys know it is important. So just chill, right? We know we owe you. But if we decide that we're going to do some things in this region, do you agree to reduce our debts? And the guys are thinking about it. So there are conversations, and we wait to see what the modalities will be. But it's actually a very interesting structure. And it's just one of the things that we like to see in terms of use what you have to get what you want. And there are people that are so about climate and stuff, and they would hear. So why not if not? So we wish them good luck in all that. And then the final thing, US, yes. So we all know that the US lockdown, government shutdown, not lockdown. The US government shutdown has been a big issue. Now, one of the things that I will want to highlight here is, no, we've talked about it so much, but I just wanted to create a scenario about why it is important for you to build wealth and not just make money. Number one, understand that everyone that we respect and see that this person is doing well, this is the richest man, blah, blah. They don't talk about how much they earn every month. They talk about how much they are worth. And how do they do that? They value their assets. So if you make all the money in the world, but you don't have assets, your net worth is going to be zero. Yeah. Why am I saying this? Imagine someone who's doing well, doing excellently well in government, earning maybe 200K, living in a good place. You have a 30-year mortgage, you've paid 10, 15 years out of it, you have 15 years to go. And imagine if this government shutdown goes on long enough for you to, for your mortgage lender to actually decide that you are in a default on that mortgage. You know that you'll be broke because cash is not coming in. And then you'll now be in double jeopardy because they can actually be a foreclosure on your property at the same time. What am I saying? A lot of times lifestyle creep where I was earning 70K, I moved to 100K, I moved to a better location. Then I moved to 200K and I moved to a better location, buy a bigger house. And then you just realize that you're pushing forward the can when it comes to mortgage payments. And then you don't realize that you're not building any other assets apart from dumping money into that property. Yes, the property makes sense, but that property is not entirely security if it is tied to you earning. Because the moment you earn and you stop earning for any random reason, you're out of the property eventually and then what happens? Everything feels like it falls to the ground at the same time. So we need to avoid that. We need to be very intentional. We actually have a tool on how, what's it called, a freebie, that like a case study on how some people in diaspora, three people in diaspora moved away from real estate because it's a real thing. A lot of people think that a house is security in the developed north. It is not. If you own a house in Africa where you paid with cash, it is an asset. But if you own a house that you're paying 30 years mortgage on, and if, for example, you lose your job in a couple of months, you'll be out of that house, then you have to rethink your profiling of it as your asset. What you should be doing in your network calculation is how much is it worth right now? How much do I still have to pay? The difference is what is your net worth in that situation, and understand that the day that you have to sell it, if you are forced to sell it, you won't be able to recover the true market value. So what am I saying? This has the government shut down, government has lifted itself back up. But what are you going to do differently? How are you going to start saving? How are you going to start investing, building a proper network that will last and stand the test of time and be a shock absorber when elephants decide to fight? On this note, I just want to wish you guys a beautiful rest of the weekend. If you have any questions, if you have anything, I see so many people online today. I'm happy to have you guys on. Don't forget to share with a friend, and follow us on all social media handles. Let me see if I can pop that up there. Yes. And of course, these sessions are powered by the Money with Club. Check us out, www.themoneywithclub.com, and see you next week. Bye.